Orla. Minister, you made the point earlier you're very impressed with the residents of North County Dublin. They're actually not very impressed with the activities of the DAA or indeed the department, because it's an absolute fact that Dublin Airport is the least regulated airport in terms of 17 similarly sized airports across Europe. Now, the DAA is a 100% owned state organisation which runs that organisation, and my question is, what steps have you taken to ensure that this appalling practice, which is intruding on the lives of citizens, is intervened with and changed?
Thank you, and I'd like to thank the Deputy for the question, which is on the same lines as many of the others which have been coming through today, because I think there is great concern and indeed enormous amount of interest in the area, and it seems that all TTs of the area are feeling the anxiety and distress of those residents of the area who are affected by the noise at Dublin Airport and by the prospects ahead. Given the different geographical and environmental circumstances of each airport, I am not sure that the comparisons of type suggested in the Deputy's questions can validly be drawn. There are also considerable variations in the nature and extent of aircraft operations at different airports, which necessitate tailored mitigation responses. In other words, it has to be different according to each airports, the various flights, the flight paths, the number, the frequencies, and indeed the noise and the environment. The Environmental Noise Directive No. 49 of 2002 sets out certain requirements for the assessment and management of environmental noise from transport sources, including from major airports such as Dublin. This directive was transposed into national law by the Environmental Noise Regulations 2006. These regulations set out a two-stage process for addressing environmental noise through the preparation of strategic noise maps and noise action plans, the fundamental objective of which is the prevention and reduction of environmental noise. It is my understanding that the most recent noise mapping exercise found that 200 people are exposed to undesirable nighttime levels above 55 dBA from aircraft using Dublin Airport. This amounts to some 0.02% of the total population of the Dublin town and city. As compared to a previous mapping exercise in 2007, there has apparently been an overall reduction in the number of people exposed to undesirable nighttime noise levels. That is no comfort to those people who are still suffering under this particular noise regime, but it is just to put it in proportion and not to make sure that it's not exaggerated to include thousands and thousands of people. I believe that there must be continuous efforts to secure further improvements. The current regime for managing airport noise is based on EU legislation dating back to 2002, where the responsibility rests primarily with the airport operator. The entry into force in June of the year of EU Regulation 598 of 2014 represents a shift in responsibility from the airport operator to a separate independent statutory entity or competent authority to oversee the delivery of the new, more prescriptive approach to airport noise management. On 22nd of September last, I announced details of how this more prescriptive approach will be implemented in Ireland. In particular, there will be a dedicated, expert-focused, competent authority to take responsibility for consideration of all airport noise issues. There will also be clarity regarding the collaborative working and public consultation arrangements that have to be applied in this area.
Thank you, Minister. Clare, Daly.
I'm not sure, Minister, if you're just ill-informed or you're just not getting it on purpose. The precise point made by the residents is that figures produced by the DAA and Fingal County Council claiming that 200 people are affected by aircraft nighttime noise is sadly laughable in the extreme. There are thousands of affected citizens in varying degrees. They are actually worse affected now than they were previously, because previously 10% of aircraft used to take off to the east. Now 30% take off to the east, giving more intrusion on residents living in that area. So my next question is different, but this question actually deals with the reality now. And there are 14 measures imposed in other similar airports to Dublin, such as noise quotas, operating quotas, noise surcharges and so on, which exist in those airports, which are in contrast to what exists in Dublin. Specifically, aircraft are enticed to use Dublin Airport at night. They get reduced charges. So that's one concrete measure that I would like you to comment on specifically. How, in God's name, can we stop or minimise the impact of aircraft noise when the DAA is inviting them to have reduced charges at that?
Thank you very much indeed. First of all, let me say to you, I've met a large number of these residents, and I'm quite happy to meet a large number more of them and to hear what they have to say. I would like to see the evidence that you have, if you can produce it, to say that aircraft is being enticed to use Dublin Airport at night. Because if that's true, if it's true on a massive scale, of course I'll look at it. I certainly haven't seen any of that evidence before, and I'm led to believe that the opposite is the case. But if you can produce the evidence of that sort, let me look at it. I certainly will. And I think that what you ought to do, I think, in this situation, though, is to regard the possibility of a new regime on noise as a possible positive. I agree, it has been unsatisfactory to many people in the past. There are problems when you have a monopoly running roughshod over people, residents and areas, particularly a state monopoly in that particular situation. Of course there are. But we now have a situation, and I ask you to give it a chance, where we've appointed a new competent authority to monitor noise. That is going to have, we are going to have a single unit, a single body, dedicated solely to monitoring noise in Dublin Airport. That is going to be monitored itself over a period, and we're going to see the results of what it does in a very, very short time. We're going to be able to make a judgment on it then.
Thank you, Minister. Clare Daly.
Fingal operating in these areas, so in that sense anybody new is to be welcomed, but I'll deal with that in the next question. It is a fact, Minister, that currently most airports around Europe charge extra for aircraft traffic at night. Dublin is one of 3, along with Rome and Oslo, which doesn't. That's a fact. I'm a bit shocked that you don't know that, particularly as you've had representations from residents in the airport. So I'd like you to come back to me on that and to see what exactly you're going to do with the DAA for this, because it's an absolute fact that because of the regime they're operating at the moment, it means people are being impeded on. And I think there's a really lack of understanding. Noise has been deemed, and aircraft noise is the most intrusive of all noises, having an incredibly detrimental impact on learning and on people's mental health and well-being. So this has consequences, and this is now. I'm not talking about the future. So I'll give you the facts. This is a nice study done of the 17 airports, but absolutely they entice them through reduced charges. So I hope you come back to the House with what you find out when you meet them.
Thank you very much indeed, and I'd be most interested to receive the evidence. Thank you.
Question number